Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Mafia and Gangsters video. Alright, let's go ahead and let's do another random entry here. This one yet again focusing on a lesser known Mafia gangster, but someone that was also involved within the world of politics. I mentioned that in the past with some of my other videos, how sometimes there's these gangsters that not only do Mafia type activities, but they end up being within the world of politics. More on that here in a minute. And he was someone that was pretty prominent there also in Chicago. In fact, I just did a video the other week with regards to another gangster there in Chicago. Very prominent city, it looks like, especially in the early 1900s when it came to gangster activity. But you're looking at a picture of him now. His full name was Joseph Esposito. But as always, there's nicknames associated with these Mafia guys. And in his case, his nickname was Diamond Joe. And you'll know exactly why here in just one moment. So let's go ahead and let's talk about all the fascinating information associated with Joseph Diamond Joe Esposito. So who was this Diamond Joe? Well, he was someone whose actual name was Giuseppe Esposito. This was because he was born there in Italy, Serra, Italy, although I read in another article that may have been born in Sicily as well. But in his case, he was born in April 28th, 1872. Once again, very little is known with regards to his early life as far as his childhood and as far as his teen years. Again, it's just a common theme with many of these gangsters born within the late 1800s. But eventually, him and his family, they traveled or immigrated over to Chicago, Illinois. And when they did so, that's when they in turn became, or in his case, he became someone within the world of gangsters, in this case, a street gang, specifically in Chicago's own version of Little Italy. This would have been somewhere around the early 1900s that he was within that type of activity. And sure enough, once the Prohibition Act started, that's when in his case, he was involved with a gang called the 42 Gang. They in turn absolutely reveled within all this brand new type of success. Here you had something again that was just 100% illegal, but so many mafia and gangsters out there decided they're going to make a killing, both literally and figuratively, when it comes to this illegal product. And so there he was, part of the 42 Gang, there again in their version of Little Italy, using it to enter bootlegging and then making sure that him, along with another gangster named Sam Momo Giancana and another one named Paul the Waiter Ricca, all of them essentially did that. And he ended up working also with the Jenna brothers. This was a crime family that was also there within the Chicago area. So in his case, early 1900s up until about the early 1920s or so, that's when he had a huge, absolutely huge success as far as being in bootlegging, and he was also in racketeering, and he also became involved in extortion, which is another form of crime. Essentially, it's trying to make sure that people pay up for certain things or certain information to not get out there, usually in the form of coercion. And then also he was involved with prostitution. And so this was another case where he was deeply involved with a successful form of gangster activity. Interestingly enough, though, when it came to politicians, he was involved with labor racketeering. That's when he was heavily associated with what was called the 19th Ward there in Chicago. This was his version of being someone in terms of a politician. In fact, he ended up being what was considered an alderman, one of the earliest known Italian Americans in the United States to be elected as an alderman within the Chicago area. If you don't know what an alderman is like a loose way of saying, and it literally translates to elder man. This was someone that was normally considered a prominent person within their area, there within a city. There's going to be other areas in the city that have other prominent people. His case, he was the one that was within that specific spot. And then they form almost like a council of sorts. And then that way they get to talk about the latest stuff happening within the city, stuff that could impact not just them, but obviously the citizens that are there too. And then that's where he was heavily involved with it. So it goes to show, with all the activity I was just mentioning, bootlegging, extortion, prostitution, and then then labor racketeering that all led also to him being almost like a respected member within the community. He also used it in nefarious ways, in one case providing political protection to some of the bootlegging gangs that were there. I'm guessing making sure that there was going to be, if there's stuff happening within one area, maybe he could have police look another way, or if there was going to be some kind of bust happening here and there, maybe he could help dissolve it before it ever occurs. Either way, though, he was definitely someone that stood out within the community and rose to become a prominent person. It was also during this time that this guy, Diamond Joe, earned his infamous nickname, and here's essentially why. And it's pretty cut and dry, pretty simple when you think about it. It's because he was someone that was a huge fan of diamonds. He had diamond cufflinks, he had diamond rings, and he had all other forms of jewelry that were consisting of diamonds. So I'm guessing that eventually people started to see this so frequently from him that they eventually just called him Diamond Joe. It kind of stands out too, right? I mean, whenever you have a nickname like that, it definitely showcases like someone is flaunting their power, someone is flaunting their political influence, their money when it comes to, at least on a visual link, you know, whenever they meet people and they showcase all the diamonds around them, that they're dealing with someone who has a good amount of money. So that's essentially why he became known as Diamond Joe. That's essentially his name that stuck afterward. And he was also able to use his prominence to attend pretty famous funerals around that time, just making sure that his visage, that his influence could be seen, maybe even with rivals as well, to show that he's still making his mark wherever essentially he was. In fact, there was one period that he may have been a factor in the murder of a rival, a guy by the name of Big James Colosimo, someone who wanted to start their own bootlegging operations around that same area, but that apparently wasn't going to work with Diamond Joe. And so the idea is that, yes, he in turn became someone that was an enemy and then later outright killed because of Diamond Joe and, of course, whatever was happening in the world of prohibition, especially when it comes to knocking out rivals. And then as far as what happened to him afterward, as far as Joe Esposito, well, essentially he was able to form still a pretty prominent gang there within Chicago, but there was another guy that started to grow even more powerful, and that was, of course, Al Capone, him and the Chicago outfit that he ran. And so as it turns out, they became rivals as well, Al Capone and Diamond Joe. And obviously, considering history and what happened afterward, when it comes to Al Capone, we all know that he became the winner, if you call it that, when it came to being the boss of bosses within that entire area. And then it turns out that he may have been actually part of Diamond Joe Esposito's own death. Because here's what happened. On March 21st, 1928, apparently Diamond Joe Esposito was in the front steps of his own home. He had his two nieces right inside the house. And then as he was outside, I have no idea if he was maybe getting out to pick up milk. You know how in the back then they always had milk delivered to doors on a daily basis, or if it was picking up the daily newspaper. Either way, though, he was the victim of a mysterious drive-by shooting. I mean, literally, kind of like the stuff you see in the movies. The car pulled up and it started shooting straight at him, and then that was it. He was dead. He hit the ground, and that was pretty much it. There was no hope when it came to him surviving that kind of attack. Pretty brutal when you think about it, because again, any of those stray shots could have hit his nieces within the house, but no one knows essentially who did that drive-by shooting. But it is often speculated that yes, indeed, it was Al Capone, which makes sense. Like when you have, in this case, prohibition, when you have gangster activities there in Chicago involving extortion and prostitution and racketeering, and then you have Al Capone just growing in power more and more, and then you have this guy Diamond Joe becoming a rival of him. It makes sense again that he's going to take out someone that could essentially try to cause him harm afterward or take him out afterward. So in other words, it's cause the first hit before you become the victim yourself. And then it makes sense again why Al Capone would essentially be the type of person to be behind the murder. But again, officially, no one has any info associated with who caused that drive-by shooting other than often random speculation. But that's pretty much it. That's all the information associated with Diamond Joe Esposito, immigrating from the Italy area over to the Chicago area and then growing there, thanks once again to Prohibition, growing into a prominent member, not just in the world of the mafia, but also being an alderman, which is the closest thing to being a politician there, and becoming a prominent member within that Italian community. So again, here's more information associated with one of the lesser known gangsters out there. But if anybody has any more info, anything else I might have missed, then please post those comments below. Maybe somebody there from Little Italy in Chicago that knows more of the local information that I missed. I see your comments. People do post their experiences, especially from other family members, maybe older family members, that talk about what happened with some of the older gangsters that were there. If you have more information on that, and then please post those comments below. All right, everybody. Thanks again as always. Take care.